This is a Gilbriar Productions video by me, Paula Stone.
Hi, I'm Hal Livings, Maggie's husband, and I'm standing in front of our house out here at Hickory Creek. This is in southwestern Llano County, about 22 miles from Fredericksburg, straight down that way, north. We're north of Fredericksburg. My video today here is about birds in the fall migration out here at Hickory Creek. I've seen 48 or so species of migrant kind of birds, butterflies, dragonflies that have gone through so far this fall, basically from the 15th of August until now, which is the 11th of September, November, sorry. Anyway, we're standing in Maggie's garden, which was in a separate video recently, and probably the reason we're standing here is because many of the birds that I've photographed this fall were right here in the area where we're standing. The reason for that is that there are so many plants here, a wide variety, probably 100 different species of native plants in the gardens here and around the house, and they attract a great many birds. We also have feeders and places for birds to get water, so they tend to stop off here in the migration, and if we're lucky, we get to see them and photograph them. One of the areas where I did a lot of the pictures that you'll see later is over here. There's a little bird blind over here, a photo blind, aimed at those oak trees back there. And what I do is put a sprinkler in front of the oak trees, reciprocating kind of sprinkler, and it puts water up into the leaves and out, in and out. And the birds really like that early in the morning on hot days. They come for a shower, basically. Lots of cardinals, but also one day there were like 5 or 6 different migrants up there in the trees, warblers and the like, orioles. Up in the foliage of the trees, they get up in there and use the wet leaves kind of to rub themselves on, or just sit there and take a shower. Even hummingbirds, the hummingbirds will fly up into the water and take a shower that way. So anyway, we have lots of different types of plants that the birds can use. What birds need, it turns out, is any wildlife needs, is food and water and places to roost at night and shelter from the weather, places to nest, things like that, places to hide from predators. And the plant variety here provides all of that really nicely. If you were to look over here, for example, is an agarita bush, and that bush is a really good shelter plant for things like sparrows. If you looked out the front window of the house in the morning on a cold day, you'd see half a dozen white-crowned sparrows in and around that bush, because it's where they go when they're hiding from a hawk or whatever. So shelter that way from predators is an important thing. The trees, of course, these are cedar elms. There's a cedar elm tree right here. Well, this one. Cardinals like to nest in there. Every year there's a cardinal nest in that tree or another, right around in here. And let's go this way a little bit. The ground plants all provide seeds as well. You know, there'll be a lot of seeds coming off of these plants here. Hummingbirds like that plant there, flameleaf sumac with the red flowers. If you can see those on the video, there'll be hummingbirds out there in the summertime, especially, of course. Hummingbirds are gone now, gone for the winter. Over this way, we have feeders. Right now, of course, there aren't a lot of flowers because it's November. There are a few still. Here's a cowpen daisy right there, for example, still flowering. So over here we have two of the important things that birds are looking for. Water. got a little waterer here that they use for a bird bath. It's there all year round. In fact, in the wintertime, if it freezes, they'll all be standing around in the morning waiting for it to thaw out so they can get a drink and a bath. There's another little waterer up there, that little blue one. And then a variety of different seed feeders. Black oil sunflowers, a bird mix that I get at Costco from Audubon, and some peanuts right now. Peanuts for cardinals, chickadees, titmouses, all like the unsalted peanuts. They're roasted, dry roasted peanuts. And then, sometimes I'll have a thistle sock if we have a lot of finches hanging out here. They like those socks. And, if you stood here for a few minutes, you'd notice that there are birds coming and going even though we're standing here because this is kind of a safe place for them. There was a titmouse just then. I don't know if you caught him or not, but I wanted to mention this bird screen on the window. One of the problems we had when we first moved here was that window, especially because of the bird feeders over here. The birds, if you look up into that window, you see the reflection of a tree, and that's what they see, and so they fly into that tree and crash into the window. So we put these screens up. They're just a bird screen to keep birds away from trees, basically. They sell it at Home Depot. If you have a problem with starlings in town, you put it over your tree to keep them off of it, grackles, whatever, and it works really well because the birds fly into it and just bounce off and don't get hurt. So that's an important thing there. So I think we provide an excellent environment for birds. We've had over 20 years that we've been here, 173 different species of birds that I've photographed here. This is a orange-crowned warbler. They actually breed way up in Canada and then spend the winter in southern Mexico. So they're just passing through here on their way south. This is a yellow warbler female, which is also green, and you'll notice looks very much like the previous Tennessee warbler. That is typical in the fall. It's very difficult to distinguish between warbler species. Here's an Indigo Bunting female migrating through, probably headed down to Central America, down in the tropics. Here's my favorite sparrow, which is a Lincoln sparrow. They're here in the winter every year and solitary. They like to hang out with the white-crowned sparrows because, I guess, safety in numbers with the hawks that fly around trying to pick off sparrows. This is a chipping sparrow, also the first one I've seen this fall. They're very active in the winter in big flocks. Good. This is a white-crowned sparrow. They migrate down from up north in, say, Montana. One of my favorites because we always have so many of them, and they're very vocal all winter long, singing out there. Last year we had very few, so it was a joy to see this guy show up. He was the first one this fall. Here's another odd thing, a painted bunting male who showed up in October and is still here in November. They're here from about April through as late possibly as August, but then they're gone. Suddenly this guy showed up and has just stayed. I guess he's going to spend the winter here. We have a lot of these pine siskins here this fall. They're actually experiencing what birders call an eruption out of Canada. They're a northern forest bird that eats pine nuts. Apparently there's a shortage of pine nuts in the eastern forests in Quebec and Ontario this year, and they moved down south by the millions everywhere in the United States this fall. You'll probably see them in Fredericksburg if you watch for them. They're a kind of finch. Here's a yellow warbler who just had a shower a few moments ago and is up there in the foliage shaking the water off. We have a lot of these in September and October, ruby-throated hummingbird. This one obviously is a male with that pretty throat. They are migrating south from the eastern United States. They only appear here at our place typically in the fall. They'll be gone by mid-November. One cold morning back in October with a north wind blowing, I went out into some area with some oak trees and saw this Baltimore Oriole up there. We don't see many of them. They come through quick, typically in the fall. Here's another summer resident. This guy is a summer Tanager male. Actually had his mate here, and they had babies this spring. And he'll head down to the Central America for the winter. Pretty impressive tail on this male scissor-tailed flycatcher. They are Texas summer birds and probably headed south into Mexico for the winter. Sparrows can also be difficult to identify. I'm going with Grasshopper Sparrow on this guy because of a couple of things, like where I saw him, which is I typically see Grasshopper Sparrows on the fence out in the grasses like that. Kind of rare at Hickory Creek to see such a guy as this. I was excited to see this black-throated green warbler passing through. They spend the summer way up in Canada and then swing down through here on their way to the tropics into Central America. So this was a quick stopover on a very long journey. This is a Bell's Vireo, which is probably passing through as a migrant. Could have been here this summer, but it's the first time I've seen it. They migrate south into Mexico along the south coast of Mexico, Pacific coast. This yellow-billed cuckoo's been singing up in the trees for a couple of weeks, but I've never actually seen him. They're pretty shy. When I put the sprinkler out up in these trees, he came out and was taking a bath, and I was lucky enough to get a picture of him. This yellow-throated vireo was in the woodland down by the gate. Probably a summer resident that will be leaving shortly, but could be a migrant. Rarely seen because they're up in the foliage of the trees most of the time, and you can't quite get to see them. This tiny little bird is a blue-gray gnatcatcher, which stay up in the trees and kind of are forever foraging and moving. They are here in the summer and then spend the winter down in Mexico, so he'll be heading out soon. This is a Nashville Warbler, always an interesting bird to see. They're tiny, of course, and he was up in the trees when I had the sprinkler going one day. They're passing through from far north in Canada, probably all the way down to Central America. Here's a female orchard oriole on the same day as the Baltimore Oriole, and she posed really pretty up there in the tree in nice light late in the afternoon. Here's a Baltimore Oriole female sitting on top of a hummingbird feeder right outside our bedroom window. You can tell it's a Baltimore by the fact that it's orange. This is an interesting shot, I think. Here's a male yellow warbler right outside our bedroom window. This is an early migrant. This was actually a shot in August of a bird that'll be coming through the whole migration cycle. This Tennessee warbler kind of illustrates the difficulty of identifying fall warblers. Notice that he's olive colored and will look very much like an orange crown warbler, for example. The difference that made me think he was a Tennessee warbler was the pattern around the eyes, specifically the white eye ring and stripe through the eye. Here's one of my favorite little birds, a ruby-crowned kinglet, tiny little guy that's up in the trees, in the foliage, rooting around and moving constantly. I always feel lucky if I get a picture this good of one of these tiny guys. This guy is a black-chinned hummingbird. We have hundreds of them in the summertime earlier, from about March till July, that they're all gone. Then this guy showed up the other day in October, so clearly a migrant. He could be all down all the way from as far north as Alaska, theoretically, and headed to southern Mexico for the winter. This is a Rufous Hummingbird. It's a first-year male. You can tell by the green spots on its throat there. This is actually a pretty rare bird for here. They migrate through, but rarely through our area.